Hi all, and welcome to the Scarlet Thread Studios Developers Journal on my game NANO. Now, one thing I really like to do with my game is tell a story. Some people don't find that important, but I grew up with games where the games always tell the story, and I want to be able to tell that story effectively in a nice way. And so what I decided to do is I've got to have a cinematic or sort of event system in my game that allows me to tell those stories in a visually appealing way rather than just splatting some text over the screen. Now, the Senthil engine, which is what I'm using, doesn't have an innate cinematic system like something like UDK, for example, which is totally fine because I want to make it my own anyway. But because of that, there's no editor for timing of cameras, and there's no camera path editor and stuff like that. So the fact that there's no editor has made me take a sort of a different approach to what other games would usually take. Instead of having everything on some time scale like a movie, this starts at this time on a time scale, and at every single second it's at the camera's at a different location. No, I decided I would take a different approach. Now, before I tell you more about that, I'm going to just show you what I've got so far. You won't be able to understand the depth of what's going on because it's very in its basic stage. At the moment, all I've got is camera following waypoints, camera tracking characters, and characters moving. Now, these actions, I call them actions, many actions in one sequence, which is a cinematic, and each action can either be run consecutively or simultaneously with other ones, and they can be delayed. The start of them can be delayed. They can have a delayed end. I'll go more into that later. I'll just show you right up now how it looks. Alright, so here you see the camera following the waypoints. You see how the camera isn't actually looking forward, it's actually looking at a second set of waypoints. So there's two set of waypoints for a camera fly-through. Now you're seeing the camera track combined with the character move. There's actually two character moves there. However, that was only one camera track. So you saw how the camera track was tracking over two separate actions of camera move. Now that's very basic, and I've got to add a lot more different actions, but the basic premise is there. Now I'm going to go and show you how the system works. It's one of the biggest systems in my games, and I spent a lot of time thinking on it to get it right. Okay, so here we are in the Senthil editor, in the code editor. And now the first thing I have to think of is, well, when the event's happening, I don't want the player to be able to control the characters or do any of that normal stuff, but I still want things to animate and maybe some AI, if depending on the situation, maybe. So what I've done is I've made a different state. So I have a game state, which when you're playing the game, the game is running in this state of being. And under the game state I have three other states. There might be more later. The gameplay state, when the player is in full control. The pause state, when the player has paused the game. And now I've added the event state, which is like a cinematic state. And basically the only difference well, there's more than just the only difference, but one of the major differences between the two states is in the event state I update the event manager and the level manager, whereas in the gameplay state I update the level, the player, the alert system, the GUI, etc. Now within the now I've got this event manager that I've made, which manages all the events, and basically what happens is when a level is loaded, it loads all the events at the start. This is to this takes up maybe a bit more memory. However, I don't think memory is such a big deal these days, especially for a game like this, and I'd rather it play the cinematics instantly than have to load it from files first. Now let's have a look at this event manager. What it does is it actually takes data from a game object. Now this might seem a bit weird because I'm using the game objects a bit abstractly, and I'll show you my level and how that works. You can see all of these little things here. These are actually helper objects. They don't actually do anything. What they do is when they're loaded, they get the data from their parameters and they send their data to whatever manager they need, and then they delete themselves by returning false. So for example, this sends data to the camera, so I can easily change camera stuff. This is player data. Quite a lot of stuff in there. It makes me able to customize, and this is the event or cinematic data, where I can drop and drag sequences in. Now a sequence, how I've done it is I've defined a sequence by an by XML files. That's my phone. And so this is an XML file that I've imported into Essential, and I've dragged and dropped it in there. Now that XML file is given to the event manager when the level is loaded, and it will create a sequence. You can see this function here, create a sequence from the ID of the XML file, and that goes and creates a sequence, and it sends that XML data to the sequence. And then I have a sequence class, and the sequence class receives the XML file, and then it creates a bunch of sub actions. There's this class here that I've called event action, and that's the base class for all actions, and then all different actions are derived from that. And you saw all these actions that I've made so far before. Action cam track, the camera tracking, action cam WP, so the camera waypoint following, and action character move. Now I can make any number of these. I just have to extend it a little. It's pretty easy in this setup. Now further to this, I've broken it up into 3 sections. You'll see here not all actions are the same. There are start actions, normal actions, and end actions. Now what I did here was I broke up the start actions that I used to get the characters into position, ready for the scene, to set the scene if you will, and those generally play all at once. All the characters move to their positions to get ready for the scene. Now the actions are the ones that are actually the cinematic itself, the important ones, the ones that tell the story. See, if the characters aren't in the right place, then it's no good. In this case, though I wouldn't usually do this, the start action was the cinematic fly-through with the waypoints, and then the actions were the camera tracking and the character moving. Usually I would just these start actions could be instant moves, so it's just bang, they're moved there and it goes straight into a cinematic, maybe not. And then once the actions are completed, there's the end actions, which put the characters and whatever into position for the character to take over and start playing, or there could be none if you don't need that. Now these are managed fairly basically. It'll play all the start actions, and then once they're done it'll play the play actions and then the end actions. Now the problem is, how do you get these actions to relate to each other, and how do you get them to play consecutively or simultaneously or delayed? It gets a bit more complex, and this is where the XML comes in. I'm just going to pop over to the XML file and show you what it looks like. Okay, so here we have the XML file for a single cinematic or sequence or event, whatever you want to call it. So we start off with our sequence node, which encapsulates everything, because that's the sequence. We have some little things like the ID of the sequence. We need that if we want to play the sequence. Say you have a trigger in the game that triggers a sequence that needs to reference that ID, for example. This 1001, I've decided that, 1001, if there is a event with ID 1001, that's the start sequence for the level that will be played when the level is loaded, no matter what. Now, as you can see, I have structured the XML file the same way as my code, with these start actions, actions, and end actions, which I have none at the moment. And within each of these nodes, we have a node for each action. So this is that camera waypoint fly through. We have a couple of values that are common to all events. That's these ones at the top and at the bottom. And then in the middle, we have values that are specific to specific types of actions. So these are specific to waypoints. Now let's look a bit deeper. Each action has a type, of course. So type 1 is cam waypoints, camera follow waypoints. This is an enumeration in my code. Of course, I can't use an enumeration here, but I know that it's 1. We have init flag and wait time. Now, well, what do those mean? We have end wait, cancel flag, and complete flag. What do those mean as well? Now, one of the things you have to think about is, well, how do you get these actions to relate to each other? And what I mean by that is how do we say, well, this is an action that plays when you start the sequence automatically? How do you say this action starts when this other action finishes? Or how do you say this action starts 3.5 seconds after this action starts or finishes? Now, this is my solution for that problem. Every single action has an initialization flag, and every single action can be told, can be given a number, a flag number, and if that flag number is the same as the initialization flag, then that action will start playing. Now, how does an action get given a flag? Well, it's simple. The sequence is in control of giving all its sub-actions the flags. Basically what happens is when a sequence first starts playing, it always gives a flag to each action of 0. So any action with flag 0, of course, within the start actions, it depends which section of actions you're in, whether it's start actions or normal actions. It means that this action will be played straight away when the sequence starts. Okay, so now, well, what if you don't want it to be played straight away? You want it to be played after another action. Well, this is what these other flags are for, the complete flag. Okay, so when an action finishes, it tells the sequence manager, look, I'm finished, this is my complete flag. The sequence manager will then tell all the other actions, here's a flag. If you have the same flag, then start playing. Alright? So here you can see it's 0. 0 is the default for nothing, unless, of course, it's a start action. Now, we saw this happen in the event. We saw once we were done with the camera waypoint following, that was the start actions, and we're in the actions, we saw the camera was tracking while the character moved to a point. That all happened simultaneously. Then the camera continued tracking until it. Then what happened as soon as he finished moving to the first position, he did another move to a second position. These were two separate actions of character movement. Now you can see here is a character movement here, which is type 5. Its init flag is 0. So this character movement is going to happen straight away as soon as the normal actions start, because it's got type 0. And it's got things like the position it moves to, the final rotation, etc., etc. Now, it has a complete flag of 1. So when it's finished, it sends to the sequence manager, I'm finished, my flag is 1. The sequence manager says to all the other actions that aren't currently active, if you have sequence init flag of 1, then start. We can see the second character move action here has an init flag of 1. that means that action will automatically be called and start playing straight after this action is finished. Now, what about the tracking? Well, when you track a camera tracking an object doesn't really have a defined end. So how do you end something that doesn't have an end? Well, this is where the cancel flag comes into play. I wanted the characters to stop being tracked, the character to stop being tracked once it had finished its second move. Now, you can see the complete flag of that second move was 2. And you can see here, which is the character track action, type 3, I've commented it in there, has a cancel flag of 2. Now, if a current action is sent a flag, and it has a cancel flag the same as the flag being sent to it, then it will cancel. It will stop tracking. And basically, once this one stops, it gets removed from the active playlist, and therefore the sequence is considered to be finished. Now that's how I do that. Now, how do I do delays? You noticed how there was a delay from when the camera waypoints finished to when the character moved, and then there was another delay in between the character moving to the second position. That's what this wait time is for, and this end wait. Wait time basically means, okay, wait this amount of time, so in this case it's 0. Wait this amount of time, X amount of time, after you are initialized, before you start playing the action. Okay? And then this end wait says, once your action is considered complete, so the character's moved from one position to the next, don't tell the sequence manager you are complete until X amount of seconds later, in this case 1 second later. Okay, so that should have explained it pretty in depth. As you can see, this is exactly our cinematic. We flew in, character moved while at the same time tracking, because this had an init flag of 0, so these started at the same time. Once that finished, this one started, character moved to the second point, and then this one was cancelled, and there was no end action, so the sequence finished, went back into the gameplay state. That's enough of the XML file. Okay, so here we are back in the code, and we have our event action base class. So this is an action. Now it keeps a pointer to the event sequence, its parent sequence that it belongs to, and it has this important function here called enable progress flag. Now this is the function that the event sequence calls and sends the flag to check if this event should start. And you can see what I mean here in the code. Well, if it's active, it checks, and then here it checks the cancel flag, and if it is the cancel flag, it deactivates. If it is the init flag in this case, if it's not active, then it will either activate or it'll set the wait timer before it activates. Either way, once this returns true, the event will be placed in a container of active or current actions in the sequence. So it can, even though it's not started, it's officially started according to the sequence manager, but not according to itself. It's still wait for the timer. Now, the event sequence, we have another function called report progress flag. And what happens is, when an action updates and it finishes, it will report its complete flag, and by calling this function report progress flag, for technical annoying iterator reasons, I had to separate the report progress flag and actually applying the flags. I had to store them each frame, and what happens is it'll go through all the actions in the relevant sequence and enable the progress flag and do whatever it needs to do. So that's how that works. I don't think there's really any more to explain about that. However, I will show you something cool, how I get the waypoints for the camera to move. Let's have a look in our scene, and I'm just going to pop on waypoints. Now you can see there's actually two sets of waypoints here. This set of waypoints here is the waypoints that the camera actually follows. However, it's pretty useless if the camera is just facing the direction it's moving. So there is a second set of waypoints that the camera actually looks at. So the camera follows this one and then looks at that one. Looks familiar? Now, these are camera waypoints used by the camera, so the way I get them into the game is I store them with IDs 0 and 1 in the camera data object, and whenever an action is activated, it will say, camera, can I please have my referenced waypoint, and that whatever waypoint line ID is in the XML file, it'll ask for that one, and that's how it gets that. So let's play with that just a tiny bit. I don't like this part, or how it like sort of spins back. That's annoying. So see, he's going to be looking at this point when he gets to this point. It'll interpolate smoothly. Don't want that to be there. Get that more there. Move that in a bit more, move that in a bit more. Final position I thought was okay. Let's give that a shot, shall we? I think that was a little bit better. There's our action, and there's our other action, and cancel. There we go. Okay, people, I hope you enjoyed this sort of walkthrough of how I made this event manager. I'm hoping to add tons of different actions, such as dialogue, both text and even voice, prompting music, prompting sound effects, camera following waypoints but tracking character actions, character animations, you name it. If it can go on the cinematic, I'm going to add it to the cinematic scene, and hopefully I'll get to show you some gameplay, some more decent gameplay of this game. I'm finally getting to the end of the long list of major systems that I need in the game. This one was a really big one. What's coming next is I need to fully flesh out this HUD system here. I need to get abilities, items, more information, etc. I need to make mobile enemies instead of just static ones. Visualize the inventory system. There is an inventory system that exists, but it's so far all in the ether of the code. There is no visualization for it yet. And I need to add more characters and props and whatnot. But yes, all the major systems in the game are pretty much in to some level. So I hope you enjoyed that. Hope you learned something. Have a good one.